Thanks for tuning in. Before we get started, I should let you know we had some issues with Colton's audio track. It should be cleared up at around the 25-minute mark. Thanks for listening.
Welcome everyone to This Week I'm Learning. I hope you hit leg day yesterday because today it's about arms. Well, mostly, possibly. This episode is Tenacious number 10, being recorded August 13th, 2020. I'm your host and local ARM evangelist, Brandon Vader. With me today, we have special guest, Charlie Stifler, also known as Mjolnir.
Mjolnir!
We also have, I think below me today, possibly, Colton Roper. No. No? Over that way. That way?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
That way. Colton Roper, also known as Seeker
Hello, Internet
4761.
That's
And then,
the number of shoes he has.
Yeah, I have an odd number of shoes.
You have
I
one
lost
pair
one.
that is not. Yeah.
I lost one. But which one of all those pairs? Who knows?
And below me, Cody Stradman, also known as Psychonitrous.
So, before we begin, I have a short little factoid for our special guest, Charlie. Would you like to hear it, Charlie?
Sure.
Did you know, through all my vast research, I discovered that this podcast is the only podcast that can be seen from space?
Okay.
I know.
Is it because I'm sponsored by Lego Space?
It's
No?
unrelated, but a funny coincidence. So, little do you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, so this week it looks like we only have two topics, but Charlie is going to tell us about exciting information about the Roman goddess of agriculture.
Yep.
Every day
Okay.
I ask, what's going on with the Roman goddess of agriculture? Every day. I am so glad
to
you're
know.
finally going to
I'm
Fill
going
me in on
to
this.
answer all of your questions.
that's all I've ever
and-
wanted.
As Brandon has already kind of let go, this week Brandon will be answering Cody's burning question: why should I care about ARM? And it sounds like it's more of like a infomercial. This is why you should love it, instead of like actually trying to convince him.
No,
But we'll see.
No. Informational.
Okay.
This is
Highly
the fourth
informational.
time Brandon has mentioned ARM in some way.
I knew he loves arm.
Fifth?
Leg,
I'm
not
pretty
so
sure this
much.
is number 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How do you feel about arm and hammer?
It's half okay.
I need like a pun button.
But we have
Booze.
Yeah.
arm
Booze.
and hammer. We have Dracanis,
Yeah.
who's arm, and
Oh.
Mjolnir.
I've got a hammer.
Oh my god.
So
Yes.
terrible.
Just stop the podcast now. We're done at 10.
We're done. We're done.
Jesus Christ.
It's only been 5, but still.
Well,
All right,
Charlie, you go first.
Okay.
I have got to know about the Roman goddess of agriculture.
Without Googling it, can anyone tell me the name of the Roman goddess of agriculture?
It's not Dionysus, is it?
No, it is
Or-
not.
5
5 letters.
I don't know.
Diana?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know. Because
Dara.
I would have guessed.
Ceres.
Ah,
Ceres.
shit.
Oh.
Ceres, which was in the news this week, if you guys didn't know, because the data from the Dawn space probe, their report has been finalized, and they're letting us know about the dwarf planet Ceres.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm really not going to tell you
Bring it.
about agriculture here.
Oh, I was
Oh.
excited.
My
I wanted
heart.
to get my heart
Sorry.
sugar out and,
Sorry.
sow some
So the big
plants.
tagline that makes this like important enough to talk about for 20 minutes, is they have reasonable confidence that there is a liquid saltwater ocean under the surface of the planetoid.
Ooh.
So this is the
That's-
one in the asteroid belt, if I'm not mistaken?
Correct. So background.
Further
Freaking
in
wild.
than Pluto.
Yes. So
Sure.
the background on Ceres is that it was discovered January 1st, 1801 by a guy named Giuseppe Piazzi.
Giuseppe.
Yeah. Very Italian name. He was in Palermo at a monastery. And for 50 years, it was thought to be a planet. Like a full-blown, not dwarf, just planet. This is my opportunity, number one, to get on my soapbox about fucking Pluto. It's a planet. There will always be 9. There will always be 9.
Not by
There will always be 9.
definition.
This is where
the International Astronomical Society's decision.
This is where Neil deGrasse Tyson and I just
Let
go
it
our
go.
separate ways. No, I will not.
Follow Frozen, let it go.
You know, there was
So-
an episode of Stargate Atlantis that I absolutely love because it's got, like, you know, McKay and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and then it has Bill Nye in it. And one of the quips is they talk about... wait, was it that episode? It was... Maybe I'm getting that confused with an episode of Big Bang Theory. But
Yeah, it was Big Bang Theory.
Oh, okay.
Big Bang Theory.
Uh-huh.
I wonder
A
if
little
it
bit
was.
different in-
No, there might actually be a quip in one of the episodes of Stargate Atlantis too. When
Probably.
yeah. I'll
So-
have to watch that.
Getting back on topic for a moment. The reason why Ceres lost its status it is because it fails to clear all of the objects out of its orbit. There's other astronomical, wrong word, stuff in its orbit, and it can't clear it because it's not quite big enough. This is actually the same reason why Pluto lost its title, but there's a whole lot less in Pluto's orbit, so that's why I have a problem with this. But so
It's by the
Ceres,
Oort Cloud.
no, it's way farther in than the Oort Cloud, but that's another time. It is about 1 million square miles of surface area, which is about the same size as the country of Kazakhstan. For scale, in Thailand is 200,000 square miles, so it's about 5 times bigger than the surface area of Thailand.
Okay.
Not counting the water, by the way. So, as we mentioned, the orbit is between Mars and Jupiter. If you were to compile all of the matter that's in the asteroid belt, or what we consider the asteroid belt, if you piled it all together and smushed it together, it would be about 3% of the mass of our moon. And 30% of that, all of that mass, is the dwarf planet Ceres. So there's a bunch of stuff in the asteroid belt, but it's not like what we see in the movies where it's, you know, a bunch of stuff really close together, kind of just chilling out in space. It's items and objects traveling hundreds of thousands, if not tens of thousands of miles per hour, and it's all going one direction. But very interesting, Vesta 4 Vesta, is one of the other dwarf planets in the asteroid belt, and only one side of it is severely pockmarked with craters because it travels just a smidge slower than everything else in the cloud, so it's getting rear-ended constantly.
So it's tidally locked.
Yeah. So a little bit more detail about Ceres. Its orbit is about 2.5 AU, or like 232 million miles from the Sun. The perihelion is 2.5. The aphelion is 2.9, so like 269 million miles from the Sun. It takes 4.5 years to orbit the Sun, but its days are only 9 hours long. And with low temps around 261 below freezing Fahrenheit and highs around 180 minus in Fahrenheit, it's, you know, like a balmy Fairbanks in the middle of summertime. More importantly, It has a
Good
15.
joke, by the way.
Thanks.
That's a kick-ass
Factually
joke.
inaccurate, but still good. Yes.
Yeah. It has a 15-month synodic period, which means every 15 months, relative position to Earth matches up again. So, as a comparison, it takes 26 months for Mars and Earth to be in the same relative position again. So it actually makes it more ideal with more frequent launch periods in order to study or go to it or investigate the ice, land something on it, etc.
Or harvest ore.
Or harvest ore, or send a resupply mission, small things like that. Also, something that's kind of interesting is that its escape velocity is 1,140 miles per hour, which doesn't sound like, what does that mean? You have to go 24,982 miles an hour on Earth in order to achieve escape velocity, where the force of gravity is just completely erased and you have a net outward trajectory that cannot be reversed. So it makes it relatively ideal to take off from, even with, it's not going to be atmospheric, obviously, because its atmosphere is very sparse, even worse than Mars by an order of magnitude. But, ion engines, which are currently in the news again because they actually broke the speed record for the change in velocity with an ion engine, and it was like 24,000 miles per second change in velocity over the course of a 2-year burn. So it's not a fast change. It's not like a Saturn V or a Falcon 9, but it changes it, and it's significant.
Yeah, in a long distance race, it'll win.
Now, the reason why we think we know that there's liquid water, highly salinated liquid water underneath the crust of Ceres is because it has cryovolcanoes, which happens to be one of the coolest things I've ever said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh.
That
took too long.
What's sad is you wrote that joke.
I did write that joke.
And you expected us to...
I even put parentheses puns so I knew to pause.
God damn it.
So the volcanic activity is literally erupting water and ice. And obviously, since there is almost no atmosphere, as soon as the water hits the vacuum of space, it's completely rock solid ice. But the NASA probe Dawn actually has some amazing pictures of this 26-mile deep crater that has an eruption coming out of it. It is very, very cool. It also has one freestanding, for lack of a better term, cryovolcanoes, and it's called Ohana Mons. And it, Mons being tallest, you can think Olympic Mons on Mars. It is a ginormous mountain, 3 times as tall as Everest. Ohana Mons is shorter than a 14er. So not terribly large, but when you consider that...
What do they measure the height from?
So
when they're doing the sea level?
The topographical orbit, they do an average of highest to lowest and basically call that sea level. And then so its deepest point is from the median or mean, and then its tallest point is from the mean. But what's interesting about this is that it's still active, so there's a potential that this has deep magma as a possibility. The moon actually still has magma, but it is so far deep down that we would have to drill for 200, 300 miles before getting deep enough into the crust to get to magma. So one of the theories on how this planet was actually created was from the leftovers of the actual formation of the solar system, but at an orbit well beyond Pluto. So what they're theorizing, the models that they have used to see how long it could have been in this orbit, almost all of them have it coming from the outer solar system and coming in, which is interesting because that mythical ninth planet that is not Pluto, second time, has such an eccentric orbit that that's part of the reason why we get these seasonal comets, and the math works out that there should be a ninth planet in the outer solar system that's just so far at periapsis right now, or apoapsis, that we can't see it. That it is basically the Oort cloud. With a solar system of our age, objects from the Oort cloud really shouldn't be cascading in towards the sun. They should be at a stable orbit. But this ninth planet kind of stirs the gravitational pot enough to pull stuff towards the center. So the Dawn space probe's mission lasted 11 years. 1 year of that was spent orbiting one of the other small celestial bodies in the solar system, 4 Vesta, which is microscopically small. It's 250 miles across, which, if it were to hit Earth, would be cataclysmically bad. But for scale, Ceres is actually a quarter of the size of our moon. It's just not nearly as dense. That's why, still, when you add all the other stuff, it's still only 3% of the moon. Very light, very fluffy material, not enough gravity to smash it all down and make it dense. The Dawn spacecraft ran out of fuel about a year ago, and it is actually in a semi-stable orbit around Ceres and will remain in orbit for 50 years before it right into the surface. So, me being hopeful and optimistic that we're not just going to continue to pollute the solar system with trash, that we've got 50 years to figure out how to get it and not let it crash into what could potentially be a space colony. So, that's what I've got.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
It's very cool.
I think, I don't remember if you said it. Did you say what the temperature on Ceres is?
Yeah.
Yeah, minus 261 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that was
for the
Fairbanks
lows.
joke.
Yeah, and then minus 180 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, the average high temperature in Fairbanks.
Yeah, except for it's like 90 in Fairbanks in the summer. It's
But didn't you say there was
way
liquid
too hot.
salt water?
Under
Deep
the
in the crust.
Oh, okay.
Where the vacuum.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Water,
Okay.
then out, frozen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the relative gravitational pull of that if you were on the surface?
So the gravitational force, and this is unfortunately in high scientific term, but the equatorial surface gravity is 0.28 meters a second. So
that would be, gravity on Earth is 9 point something meters per second. So that would be like 32nd of Earth's gravity. 34th?
About, yeah. So I mean,
34th.
Living on the surface of Ceres would almost be the same as orbiting Earth. Very low Earth orbit, around the 120,000 foot mark. We're talking about 1/15th the gravity. So it's close. It's not the same. It's close. So yeah.
Okay.
See, I'm not all medicine.
Interesting.
No, that's
A man of many scientific endeavors.
And here I thought I was going to learn about new techniques and field seating.
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Oh, that's totally in the bag.
I'll make an astronomical joke and then tell you about crop rotation.
Oh no.
So Ceres is also the goddess. Is also the goddess of grain and the love of a mother and child.
Oh.
I didn't know there was a goddess of that, but there is. Thank you,
Wikipedia. See, that's right.
Romans.
Oh yeah, peer reviewed. It's actually empirical data.
Grease.
Okay. All right, Brandon.
Yep.
I always skip leg day, and as per the previous podcast, I also am not wearing pants. So, take it away.
Let's
Okay.
for once and for all.
I
What
need
is
to know
what is the reason for ARM?
why I should be eager to switch from my x86 Surface that I could potentially play games on to an ARM machine.
Why is ARM?
Okay, so to better answer that question, you have to first learn about what ARM actually is, what x86 actually is, and what a system on a chip is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, ARM. But ARM itself is a company. It is not a architecture. The ARM company, and ARM is an acronym for Advanced RISC Machines, RISC, which RISC itself is another acronym meaning Reduced Instruction Set Computer. ARM doesn't make their own chipsets. Instead, they design and license them. For example, Apple's A-series processors are licensed designs that then they heavily modify. Qualcomm uses a lot closer to design, but does modify them a little bit. For instance, the 8CX, which is the chip that runs, well, a modified version of it runs in the Surface Pro X series. Surface
S? Or
Surface
is it
X Pro? No. It's definitely X-Ray,
Okay.
but I can't remember if it's X Pro or Pro X. Either way, I think it's Surface Pro X.
Yeah, I think it is Pro X. We're actually at work. We're gonna get one of those here in a few weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So you're already arming.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, but he's
arming.
arming at work. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
That doesn't count. You got to make it personal.
Does that fall under constitutional carry?
Yeah, exactly. Right to bear arms. I am currently bearing 2 arms.
The puns are on point tonight, boys.
It's just gonna get worse.
I love it. I fucking love it.
So, part of the reason that, so I don't know if you guys have followed this at all. Apple has not said that Boot Camp is going to work on the latest Apple Silicon powered iMacs and machines, and part of that is because they are using their own diverged silicon that is so far removed from the original ARM design licenses that there's going to have to be a lot of work done if Windows on Boot Camp wants to run on these kind of devices.
Okay.
Now, there has been some theories that Microsoft and Apple are kind of working together because there is a need for that to some extent for certain professionals out there that do use Apple. They do need Boot Camp so that they can do, network administration and stuff like that with a Windows backend. But it's not clear right now what's going to happen there. But basically, overall, the RISC architecture is just a simpler instruction set. It's a lot closer to bare metal, like what the physical transistors can actually do. So what you end up doing is coding in an entirely different way and compiling it in a different way so that it's the processor, because there's less instruction sets, is a lot more efficient, like crazy levels of efficient.
Gotcha. So that's why you have
17 times.
Okay, so that's why for the amount of power that they use, they're way faster. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So one of the articles I was reading to brush up said that a modern generation x86 chip versus a modern generation ARM chip, that ARM chip is 17 times more efficient with power, heating, and actual input output operations than the x86. It is crazy. And a lot of that is because x86 going into it is a family of instruction set architectures originally designed and developed by Intel for its 8086 and 88 processors back in 1978.
That was what was in the space shuttle.
Yes.
Ugh.
So we have an underlying architecture that is 42 years old at this point, that then additional stuff has just been bolted onto it.
So this
the
is
original instruction set.
Yeah, this is every business application ever that we've been. Oh God. No, it's interesting to know that now.
So is the mounting technology different? Do you put them in sleeves?
I'm
sorry.
So
you're fine.
I apologize.
Are we getting closer to saying, hey, let's switch everything to ARMs, let's rewrite Windows completely?
No one
for
is
ARM?
saying that.
Why?
No one is saying that because, okay, how many companies do you know, or how many computers do you still have in your company that operate on Windows 7?
Actually, I would say we're probably out of... I'm going to guesstimate we've got 250 desktops, and I would say 50 are probably 7.
I'm kind of curious what about Charlie's as well, considering the medical profession is notorious for lacking to update.
What's interesting is actually the banking industry is worse than us.
Oh, yeah.
When they sunsetted XP, almost the entire financial institution of the United States of America, all banks, the National Federal Reserve, everything was on XP. I would say actually that almost all of the machines in the hospitals that I'm in and the machines I operate for work are all modern browser, all modern operating system. But, I mean, I personally write my reports on an iPad because it fits in my pocket. And its touch screen for signing is amazing. And I have an OtterBox on it that is almost indestructible. The tough books we use, Dell series and the G-Tax are all running 11 currently. So we're actually not that, because HIPAA is more strict than the Federal Reserve, the FCC.
Yep.
Right.
But there are still certain equipment that, as long as they're non-networked, can operate on older equipment.
You'd be
like the
amazed.
X-ray machines.
Right. Well, the X-rays are actually a bad example because they are the portable X-rays with reusable film. Those are brand spanking new. CTs and MRIs are constantly getting upgraded and repaired. The thing that you need to think about is the fax machine. The fax machine. Oh my God.
Needs to die.
It needs to die.
All right, mini rant.
Now.
Mini rant. All
You're
right.
at 3 minutes, Cody.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes or less. So, when you have a fax machine and it's on an IP network, so you've got voice over IP, which most companies these days use VoIP. So you go from the piece of paper into the fax machine. So you're translating from analog, the paper is analog, to digital of the fax machine. That fax machine then goes to the ATA or to the card and goes back to Or no, it goes. Sorry, it goes from the fax machine to the modem of the fax machine, gets translated back to analog, then goes to the card or the ATA, whatever have you, analog telephone adapter, goes back to digital over the IP network of the company. Then, once it's done with the IP network of the company, goes back to analog, goes over the PSTN to the other company, which then translates it back to digital again. It goes over the IP network, then back to analog, then back to digital, then finally to a piece of paper. Or you could email
And remember, guys, this is the more secure system for sending documents. Remember that.
Or you could scan an email with encryption.
Air quotes, massive air quotes.
Okay.
Or you can keep it all, but yeah.
15-second tangent. Brandon, what would you rather listen to? A fax machine's tone or your Mintar pager at 3 o'clock in the morning for EMS?
Ooh.
I will take fax machine for 500, please.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
I don't have to worry about that now. So
if you're listening to that pager, something bad probably just happened.
Oh, bad for somebody else. It's exciting for me, but still, I would sleep, interruption, fax machine sounds, or picking up the telephone with a fax line going, which never happens anymore because they don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
I'll take a fax machine. Thank you.
But still, it's a technology that doesn't need to be here anymore.
It really doesn't.
Kind of like our 50-year-old freaking architecture that we use.
Yeah, x86.
In like 99% of computers.
So it's funny that all modern processors still contain the instruction sets for 16-bit, 32-bit, and now modern ones have 64-bit. In addition to the bolted-on instruction sets, FPU, so floating point unit, MMX, 3D Now, SSE, PAE, which is physical address extension, and then virtualization technology. So all of this crap has been bolted onto these processors that is still using kind of junky initial code compared to what we could do modern. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the RISC or reduced instruction set computers is you remove all of the crap, you get closer to your base metal, you program it to be closer to your base metal, and you have a much more efficient process in the end.
So out of just kind of, not a tangent, but eventually I'll need to go on a rant, but is it kind of related to the fact that Microsoft is basically trying to rebuild Windows from the ground up?
So,
kind of the same concept of, Windows obviously has architecture was built back from fucking 3.1, honestly. So, kind of the same concept in technology where it seems like you're starting to limit what you can actually do because you're trying to essentially code for all this old crap that isn't even really used anymore. Kind of the same thing with the architecture, it seems.
Yeah, so Windows contains a lot of bolted-on crap since 3.1 that it has continued to just compound on. And it did what I think with Windows 7 finally disable 16-bit support. Mm-hmm. And they're talking, later down the road disabling 32-bit support. But even that right now, there's so many legacy applications out there that
in major
companies
businesses,
especially
medical
use.
And banking, of course.
But that is kind of the idea behind Windows 10X. It is designed from the ground up, different. It's more of a lightweight. It doesn't have a bunch of the bulk behind it, a bunch of the older instruction sets. So it should be more optimized, run a lot better, a lot faster, but it's only going to be compatible with apps designed for that.
So really my beef then is with all of the UI, UX people that are trying to make this everything into a mobile OS. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. So
I don't like big buttons. I don't like big, like everything that makes a phone or a mobile OS an OS. I absolutely hate because I like more options. And what I
Right.
have is less options on more screens.
So, from my understanding, from what I've looked at, Windows 10X is primarily going to be on laptops and tablets. It is not going to be. It's not going to be something you're going to load up on your desktop unless you choose to do that. Like there's a SDK that you can get, and you can run the emulator on your desktop to see what it's about, but it's there for, especially for gamers, and then for anyone who needs legacy support. You're not going to use Windows 10X. This is what's going to come on, new devices that your college student gets, that your high school student gets, that grandma and
Your middle
grandpa
school
get.
student,
This is not. This is not for the advanced user. It is for the
Laptops that
average
like
person.
school children get in
Right.
their special
Well, and
orders
even
and shit.
Or
you could
they're
even get it
currently being
as a
issued
laptop.
because of
If you're a
coding.
receptionist, that's
I guess
Really?
what do you need aside from a web browser and email?
it's kind of like our VR conversation. So in a way, instead of making it the high, the performance version, they are making the user accessible version.
Well,
Yeah, it's going
it
to
would-
run on cheaper hardware. It's going to run great on cheaper hardware.
Well, why?
And it's not
Just
gonna
out of
require a lot of
curiosity, bringing it back around to ARM. Sorry for the tangent, but
No.
why wouldn't they design this new operating system to use an ARM processor for the cheaper hardware concept, more efficient and all that? I mean,
We don't have actual designs on anything that's going to be running Windows 10X right now. We know that the Surface Neo, I think that's the only announced device that I've seen that has actually had any sort of hardware specs. And I want to say that I'm gonna double check myself before I say something stupid. Because I want
So-
to say. By the way, the Duo is coming out.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not
in a
sure
little bit,
how
and
I
I-
feel
I
about
fucking
that.
want
the
it.
$1,400
$1,400,
Android, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a rant later.
That's
Yeah,
called a
I-
phablet.
I don't think I really. I gotta reserve my opinion. I don't know if they bring back my ports.
Yeah,
then
back-
maybe.
like the.
No.
Here's another rant. What I think they need to work on, and they probably are, but they need to work on it hard, is freaking battery life. And again, trying
ARM.
to tie it back into ARM
Absolutely
with the
ARM.
freaking efficiency. That's where they should be fucking focusing, not
Yep.
these gimmicks and this port pulling and all this crap that they're trying to seem innovative when that's not really what consumers want. They want to be able to plug in their phone once a week and do everything they need to do and be okay until
But-
the following week. I mean, that's
So
what they want.
I don't think the solution is going to be a processor or a battery. I think
Well,
the
it's-
solution is going to be a material science where the clear glass somehow absorbs enough UV radiation to be solar powering your
Well, it's
device
probably-
and constantly charging. That's
Right,
where the
and-
material science will make it, an infinitesimal
Yeah,
or
it's
indefinite charge.
probably a combination of everything as it's 20 years down the line, obviously.
Right,
But
get the phone
Well,
Or
what we can do
wireless
now-
charging almost everywhere.
yeah, but what
I
what
think
we
that's
can
what's
do,
going to come first.
Well, yeah, but you make a more efficient CPU that can handle heat, that can handle the computation needed. That's an a relative. I don't want to say because I can't do it, but I'd say that's a relatively
Attainable. Yeah,
attainable goal within the next 5 years.
It's within reach.
if they have the will to do it.
It's within reach.
We're not talking about hand here, just arm.
It's ARM. Hey,
All
don't put me in
blood-
harm's
blood
way.
nubs.
Point again. God damn it.
don't put me in harm's way.
Oh. But
God.
Yeah.
it
See,
kind of makes
if you wish for longer arms, it'll have far-reaching consequences.
Now you're just trying.
Yeah, we're no.
Yeah. That's
So what I'm wondering,
I'm trying to
as
get
far as
uninvited.
interesting power solutions to this. I remember this watch is probably 15 years ago that they were advertising. It's the Seiko Kinetic watch. Basically, you would have it on you, and it was powered by the movement.
Yeah, basically a tidal forces watch.
Yeah. So
kinda-
if you could do, since the phone already had.
after hours. After hours. Save it for after hours.
hours.
I mean,
I'm
the
gonna pay you to
phones
keep your
already
clothes on,
have
by the way.
accelerometers in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they actually get it, because I mean, right now they could make a phone. There's a phone going off on a
Of course
tangent
there is. Of course
made
there's a
by Energizer that is like an inch and a half thick that
runs
will
on
last you for a
AA's.
week.
It's basically,
Yeah.
I've seen that phone. It's basically
it's-
a damn
it's
phone
basically
with
a
a battery
power
pack pasted
inside
to
of it.
Yeah,
Can that
that's all
even
it is.
fly?
And
No.
that
thing-
I thought
What's
it
the
could.
I thought it was
milliamp on it?
I thought that was 30,000 milliamps.
So technically, based off of that ruling, you have to ask the pilot. So that big battery
What does
pack I have.
Wide Web say, Brandon?
No, it's 20,000 to 32,000.
No.
They can
With
fly.
the actual
18,000.
Okay,
so
it
that
can
one
fly.
That
it
one
can
can fly.
Yep.
I swear I saw a version that had 30,000, but maybe that was a different weird experiment.
Yeah. I mean, they've got energy banks that are like 20,000, but
Yeah, that's why I strive for
it-
that 20,000 number.
yeah, it's a nice safe number, no
Well,
matter
it's
what carrier you fly on, and
It's the maximum that you can fly without having to request permission from the airline that it flies. So technically, like that add power 32,000 milliamp battery that we have and that we took to Boston, that one can technically fly, but technically we were supposed to ask the airline. Now, at the time, that might have been okay if we could have that, if we could fly with it.
right.
Anything over that cannot fly. So there's that 20,000 and 32,000 milliamp limitations there. So that's why I always
Right.
seek 20,000 milliamp batteries, because anything below that, and you might as well have a 20,000 milliamp battery. Anything above that, and you are liable to have your battery stolen by TSA. And some airports
Right.
really check
Or the
that.
airport.
Fly through China, you'll know.
China will get a new battery.
Oh yeah, they'll inspect your power adapters. Like every single power adapter they took out when I flew through Beijing, they checked. Yeah.
Can they check for ARM processors, though?
That's very off the
Probably.
cuff if they can.
They check your arms.
Did
the
you
cuff.
just, like,
Okay.
look up ARM puns and you're just reading them off from the
I
fucking website?
might have the left side of my screen dedicated to puns right now. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
God.
You're welcome.
Okay, well let's try and get through this quick then before
Okay.
Mr. Punny Guy.
Okay.
So
Challenge accepted.
the third part of what we need to understand. So we now understand what ARM is and that it's actually a RISC architecture. We understand what x86 is. So now system on a chip. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is basically a combination of components onto a single chip. The Snapdragon 855, which is what powers this laptop, Yoga C630. So that chip contains not only the CPU, 855 is one of the newer 5G ones. My bad. So an 855 contains the CPU, a 5G modem, Wi-Fi, RF, which is your near field communication NFC, and your Bluetooth, RFFE, which is another. I should have looked that one up. But I think it's like another Bluetooth or near field communication thing. Audio, PMIC, Power Management Integrated Circuit, USB controller, image signal processor, AIE, or Artificial Intelligence Engine. It has separate compute cores for AI, an Adreno 640 GPU, and that's all on a single chip.
And
Wow.
How big is this chip?
just for our listeners, or people that are watching, how big is a typical cell phone chip, or the 855 in this case?
The size of a standard SD card.
The SD card is back.
We're getting
Only
rid of
because it's from
micro
my
SD,
camera.
and we're just
Oh, yeah, I
getting
know.
SD. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
SD card slots for everyone now with system on a chip.
Yes.
That's how you will replace your system on a chip. Oh, that would be awesome.
That
I want
would be
that.
really
I
cool.
actually do
Actually,
want that now.
sound and have like
Intel made a compute card platform for a little bit. That it was like a card slot where it had
not the
on
NOC,
the
is it?
RAM storage space. It was what? No, NUC.
it's-
No,
NUC.
that's next unit.
That's like an actual
unit
stick,
of computing.
right?
So there are some that are sticks. There are some that are like a box. It just kind of depends. It's their attempt to do like low power, high efficiency computing. So you can get 5 of the NUCs and have mini servers, as opposed to
Cluster or whatever.
So I'm curious.
So-
Would we have? It sounds like we really wouldn't have modern smartphones if we didn't have system on a chip. Was the first
Correct.
iPhone or the Galaxy S, the first Galaxy S, or even the Blackberries, were they system on a chip?
So technically, every cell phone, even the dumb cell
Nokia,
phones,
okay.
because they contained audio processing and stuff, even though those are technically soldered onto a daughter board, those are counted as system on chips.
So when you get like 10 of those knucks together, would you just call them knuckles?
Mute him.
Cricket.
I'm sorry, he's going to be muted for the rest of the episode.
And Charlie, sorry, had an important engagement. Sorry, guys.
Oh, so bad. I'm sure we'll hear from him again sometime, whenever this year ends.
So, in 27 years.
March with 50 years, guys.
Yeah, it'll be August, 2000th.
All right. July 37th. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, because even like the Adrenos and Raspberry Pis, those are all technically system on a chip, even though they do have separate chipsets on the board, because they're all part of one board. They're system on a chip.
So technically, the x86 APUs are actually system on a chip then. Kind of.
If everything's soldered, ish.
With the,
Yeah,
I mean the video and the, because it's, CPU and GPU as one. So
I'll be honest. I don't know
Okay,
exactly where it kind of separates out. I know
Well, I
that
thought
like
a lot of, like,
Qualcomm
audio
is
processing-
literally all on a chip.
okay. Yeah.
I thought that's kind of based on the motherboard, though. I thought some of the processing is done through other.
So it
that might be.
depends on
I don't know. I have to look that up.
depends on the manufacturer. But like the Qualcomm, all of that is on the same chip, and then that is put onto the board and then routed to your actual audio jack, although that's dying, your SD card, although that's dying, your USB Type C. Yay, we have a port.
We got one. We got one.
Your cam
For another
your
4
camera
years.
modules. Yeah.
The only reason we have
But-
USB-C is because the EU back in the only reason we had micro USB is because on phones is because the EU was like, no, not enough of all of these random cables
controlling electronic
like
waste
I remember
and shit.
my Ericsson had this weird proprietary one. Then if you had a Motorola, you had a different weird proprietary one, and then finally
Palm Pilot.
Yeah, it was terrible, man. The early 2000s for that just sucked. It's like, oh man, can I charge my cell phone?
Them's the dark times.
Like, what did you have? I had this, or this. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't have
the answer
this
is
proprietary.
No. Yeah. The answer is no, most likely.
So USB-C is awesome.
Oh yeah, USB-C is fantastic. I can't wait for Thunderbolt 4 to come out and available. If you missed that, you should. What, 2 episodes ago? 3 episodes ago? When did I talk about the Apple ARM
How many
chipset?
moons ago did we talk about that?
Because I talked about Thunderbolt there.
It's just 10 episodes.
Yeah, go back, watch it. You'll enjoy
Yeah,
it.
watch them all. You'll find it.
It's like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Ish.
Gotta catch 'em all.
You don't even have to watch them in order, honestly. Like, they're all self-contained. They're self-contained, but there's always like these running jokes that you won't get if you don't watch them in order. So,
But you were the one who was just advocating. So
you're not gonna miss anything. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what my favorite Pokemon was? Machamp with the 4 arms.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
continue.
Now knowing what ARM is, what x86 is, and what system on a chip is, what does all of that together mean? Well, we already talked about efficiency. More efficiency per watt, so better cooling, better battery life, smaller overall package because of the system on a chip design. So that's how we can get these phones that are getting smaller and, thinner and thinner while still maintaining high amounts of battery life. It's not because, it's not because they're shoving more battery in. They're actually taking some of the battery out, but they're being more efficient with the power on these devices. Or they're shrinking the board so that you can fit a little bit more battery in. So the current Snapdragon 8CX, which is the kind of premier Windows on ARM processor, there's a modified version of that in the Windows Surface or Microsoft Surface Pro X, and then there's the standard Snapdragon 8CX in the Lenovo Flex 5G, I think it's called. I briefly touched on that a few episodes ago. You look at the synthetic benchmark scores of that, and when ARM and Qualcomm kind of put this out there, their goal was to kind of match an i5 processor from a couple years ago. So you take a look at the i5 82550U, which is a laptop chip. You look at the synthetic benchmark scores. It meets, so the 8CX meets or exceeds on every point the i5 820 or 8250U. All with so the 8CX is a 7-watt TDP versus the i5, which is a 15-watt TDP.
Damn.
Wow. Double
so
efficiency.
you end up getting...
Okay.
Yeah. You end up getting same or better performance and 60% battery life increase. So if you have a 10-hour laptop, all of a sudden, now you've got a 17-hour laptop. So my Yoga, which uses, I can't remember now, I think it's like an 845 or an 850. It is not optimized for Windows on ARM. Microsoft did a lot of tweaking to make everything work right, and it's, for the most part, wonderful. I use it every day. It is my daily carry. I routinely get an entire week of battery life. Like through average use, a couple hours here and there throughout the day.
Actually, is incredible.
Back when I was working a lot more and would have it up with Spotify hooked up to headphones or YouTube or whatever, I could routinely get 24 total hours of on-screen, on internet, playing video and sound out of it.
So really, we need to get to the. Sorry, I'm kind of summarizing all of this in a way. It seems to me that we just need to get the software people to write software for ARM that is usable, industry usable, or
that isn't just mobile
entertainment
crap.
usable. Yeah, other than mobile crap. No, actually, this is going to kind of drive. Like, I really want to see that Surface that we're getting at work, but based off of this information, I'm really considering that my next tablet to replace my Surface Pro 3 would be an ARM tablet.
Congratulations, Brandon, you did it.
Now, well, so
but
we've
talked
about
it because
we've talked about all the great stuff.
Oh,
here we go. Crush my dreams.
everything else is the other hand.
Right now, as it stands, it is a platform that you should play with, but there's some caveats. There are certain programs. So, for instance, anytime I want to do coding and actually want to run, rather than just, so there is a natively compiled version of Visual Studio Code, which is basically just a text editor with some smart features in it. But if I want to run the full fat, like, Visual Studio, that doesn't run.
Well, that makes sense.
I can open it.
Because you're trying to code on ARM for x86.
I was gonna say,
Nope.
Visual
Even if
Studio,
I do an ARM, if I
Oh.
do an ARM SDK.
but Visual
Because
Studio
the base-
specifically taps into the kernel of the x86 processor. If I remember,
it does not have it does not have a compiled version of Visual Studio that runs on ARM, which there are many,
you want to
many
code
posts.
for ARM on ARM?
So this
That's
is
why
basically
I
the-
tried to install it
Yeah.
on the get-go.
This is basically saying, like, the difference between having a CD drive and a DVD-R drive. And you're saying that all the ARM is all CD. You can't create more ARM with it.
Right now. So I would imagine that as the platform gains traction, there will be programming tools for it. I would imagine if I looked deep enough and I was trying to program on the,
Well, there's obviously
a specific language rather than, I like to code in C#. And C# right now does not have a good compiler for ARM.
What is the general language that's used for
That's a good
compiling
question.
ARM?
So you can, on a x86 computer, you can make any program language, because when you compile it for ARM, what a compiler does is it takes your high-level language and converts it into the architecture code.
So it's really the
So-
the compiler is the important part.
But I'm sure it
Yeah.
prefers, like, Pythons, right? No? Okay.
That one was weak.
Come on, I had to make it
I don't
coding
know,
joke.
that was
actually
alright.
bet.
I
I actually bet that there's a Python compiler,
it's
because you
probably
don't
what
really
it's
compile
you-
Python.
yeah, it's already
You just
it's
run
already
it natively.
done. Plus, with how popular
just have to have
Python
the-
is. So, are there any? I mean, you kind of mentioned the software. Is there any, like, specific ARM software out there? I mean, I'm sure
There is.
right?
So there is currently compiled a version of Firefox that runs natively. It is fantastic. The latest, I don't want to call it Internet Explorer. It's not Internet Explorer.
Edge.
It's
Edge.
Yeah.
So Edge with Chrome.
Chromium, eh?
Yeah, the Chromium Edge, does currently run natively on ARM. It's
What about
fantastic.
any Office applications?
So all of the Microsoft 365 which comes pre-installed on this, does have full fat ARM64.
What about Office applications for people who hate subscriptions with a burning passion?
Well,
I
that kind
don't
of leads
know,
me into
because
my
I don't
question:
hate subscriptions with a burning passion.
Does Linux work with ARM?
Specifically
Oh, yeah.
when other people are
they're-
paying the subscriptions.
So if you look at Raspberry Pi uses an
Right,
ARM
you said that.
processor. So anything that runs on Raspberry Pi would theoretically run on this. But because of how tightly tied Windows is into this system, I would not want to try and be like, I'm going to delete Windows and then throw Linux on it. And then 2 months later go, oh my God, this was a terrible mistake. I want Windows back. So it is a little more closed that way.
That kind of going with that question. How does, if you were to reinstall Windows on that Yoga, does that cause issues?
I would imagine if I just tried to
can't.
throw a Windows 10 USB at it, because the USB only contains the x32 and x64, x86 instruction set.
Well, that's stupid.
But you can download, like through Lenovo, you can download the software recovery thumb drive, and that would be fine. But this is my second Yoga C630, because my first one, when the fingerprint reader failed on it inside the first week that I had it, I was instructed by Lenovo, because they didn't understand what this was. And it was funny. I watched their support guy constantly bring up Lenovo Vantage, which is their support app, which should have, all of the BIOS information and settings and are you up to date and everything. It was a splash screen that said, for support, please contact. And he was pissed. He uninstalled it and reinstalled it and got a different version of it. I watched him because I was highly fascinated at him just sitting there hitting his head against the screen, I'm sure. Because he didn't understand the device, and he was like, well, I'll reinstall Windows on it. And so he went in and clicked fresh start, and I was pissed because it's my computer, and he hit the full clear
Oh no, lost all your data.
to actually remove everything, delete the hard drive. And I'm like, that was unnecessary, because it's staying in my custody. Well, he did ask. He's like, do you have anything on here that you don't have replicated? And I used OneDrive for everything, so it's like, no. And he's like, all right, click, click, click.
It's like, wait.
And I see him click full clean, secure, clear. He's like, all right, that'll take a couple hours. Give us a call if you have problems afterwards. Click. What? No.
That's not... That's
Kicking the can down the road.
It bricked.
I could have done that.
It bricked.
Of course it bricked.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to have to deal with the return shipping.
He couldn't find.
Well, I ended up driving back to Grand Junction, walking back into the Best Buy, and going, "Hey, this doesn't work anymore. You're going to give me a replacement." And they're like, "Yes, we are. Here's your new one." And this has worked great since. And I have abused the hell out of this.
Yeah, so what I was saying earlier is, I think based off of all this information, like I said, I would replace my Surface Pro with a ARM, maybe the Surface Pro S, probably another year or so. But I'm still, for obviously, any sort of gaming or anything else, I'd still probably go with a Razer laptop or MSI or Asus.
So
there are certain games that do work. Minecraft has a natively compiled ARM64 client, and it is beautiful. But yeah,
how does virtualization work? Or does it work?
So there is. I'm glad you touched on that. That was actually one of the next bullet points I had. There is a built-in x86 32-bit emulation baked in within Windows 10. So if you have one of these Windows on 10 ARM devices, you can install and run 32-bit applications.
So that would cover...
For the most part.
Yeah, that would cover a lot of these... No? Okay.
A lot, Not all. There's a surprising amount of
Could help with the
software that
transitionary
is
period.
only 64-bit now.
Right. I mean,
Like it is
covers
amazing.
It covers a great patchwork about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
But anymore, like if you get certain Linux distro, like when I play with Linux, I usually do the BitTorrent link. There are certain BitTorrents that only have a 64-bit client. So then you have to figure out, okay, well, where do I find a 32-bit torrent client so that I can download Linux to throw on a flash drive, or, you know.
I'm surprised that ARM doesn't have a torrent client.
Native compiled.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be one.
And they
as
might.
The market,
I mean,
as the market share increases.
It changes daily. And if it's one of those things where if you're not constantly searching for new software for it, because I have had it for long enough that I know what I can do and what I can't do, and I've stopped trying to hit my head against it. I have, a 15-inch Dell that works. It works for coding. It's not super fast. It's not super powerful, but if I'm on the go and want to do some Visual Studio, I chuck that in a bag along with my Lenovo, and that's how I make do. Or for a little while, I had Shadow, which is the game streaming,
God, I love
and would
Shadow.
get into Shadow. Huh?
God, I love Shadow.
Yeah.
Random
I
thought, but
did have problems like trying to play games on it, because you can only get a 32-bit version of the client. There's not a ARM compiled version of their client, despite my many emails to support and many calls to support and many.
Make one.
Yeah,
make one.
Make one.
That's
this would
actually
be perfect.
surprising that they wouldn't, because that seems like really the best match.
It would be fucking perfect, because you have a computer that would last 25 hours, has its own built-in high-speed data connection.
Well, that's why you got, kind of the reason you got it, wasn't it? Wasn't that kind of I remember that mindset you had.
That was my goal. Yep. And then that's why I got Shadow. And Shadow, I could run, Visual Studio and text editors and stuff like that, and the lag was tolerable. The minute I would fire up a game, it was just so horrendous that I couldn't play on it. But
I guess the last question is, what does ARM need to... As a product, you're obviously relatively satisfied with it. What does it need to do you think, to become the main chip out there, at least for mobile devices? It's
already the main chip for mobile devices if we include smartphones and tablets.
Right.
Yeah,
but if we're talking Windows powered or...
So I guess,
productivity laptops.
For laptop, for actual form factor computers.
So they have the raw performance. The current reigning supercomputer is actually based on an ARM stack.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
Yeah. Let's see. Peak performance of over 1,000 petaflops. So it hit the 1 exaflop. I mean, it is absolutely nuts. They have the raw performance. They have the heat and the efficiency and the battery life. And I think as a product, ARM itself and the RISC processors that ARM designs is perfect. I think what we need is developers to start supporting it as a technology.
We gotta take the jump.
Yeah. Which unfortunately we're kind of in a chicken or egg situation, because there's so few of the hardware.
Who's going to take the loss?
The developers don't want to. Exactly.
Why would you develop for something nobody's using?
And you never mentioned it. Does ARM suffer from like the Spectre shit with the Intel chips and any of those CPU level vulnerabilities?
Nope, because there's no, from what I understand about the architecture, there's no prefetch.
that might be, and especially if it's competing with, well, chips that have that prefetch, that might be the final thing from a security standpoint. That might be the thing that pushes businesses to maybe start looking at it
You know,
seriously.
Well, and you look at what Windows doing with the Surface Pro X. Microsoft is great about making a category that is a loss leader for like a year or two, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is the thing I need. This is what I need in my life. So I foresee, the Surface Pro X getting a refresh probably next year with a higher performance chip. Microsoft has been talking about getting x86 or x84, no, x86 64-bit emulation into the next version of Windows. So hopefully that will be coming up in 6 months or so when the next refresh happens. So that's going to help out with that kind of gap filling transitional period, which should hopefully then make more hardware manufacturers take the jump, because then more customers will be able to be like, well, most of my day can be done with native apps, and it's just this one or two that I need.
and then they'll put pressure on the actual
basically that whatever percentage
programs.
threshold, whatever that needs to be, 80% of your daily driving stuff, or whatever that number would be for the average consumer. That's the threshold they have to get to. And
well, and you think about like our parents, they would be perfectly fine with this kind of an app.
Ragging on our parents' generation again, huh?
No. I'm just saying, like, for the most part, I look at my mom's use of a computer.
They're not power
especially
users in any sense of the word.
They utilize email, web, and maybe Word, Excel, Office, and that's really about it. So right now, like, I would love to get my parents on one of these, because then they can't, click on a link and then it downloads something fishy, because it can't run that something fishy. Right now,
it's
pretty
so
virus
there's no
proof.
ARM viruses.
Yeah, this is the thing that like Apple. Yeah.
I mean, some of the 32-bit viruses would probably work because of the emulation layer, but would they work right? Who's to say? It would be an interesting test, but I'm not going to risk my device or my network to that.
So talking about security, and this is probably going to be a topic starter for a future show, the competition for ARM might be quantum computing in the future.
I have a topic.
If we could miniaturize quantum computing, maybe.
But I
that
mean, you look at
requires
quantum
so much
communication.
power.
Yeah, you look at quantum communication too, which is. I was reading an article that actually my mom sent me that I found fascinating, and that in a sense it's unhackable.
With current technology,
I mean, because
because
the
if you
transmission pathway,
if you look at these particles, they change. So anybody who's on the receiving end of that, anyway, I need to do more research into this, but that's something I find fascinating.
Definitely something we'll have to talk about in a future episode. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will save my comments on that for then.
I guess we've been here for a while, so I guess the question we all have is, Cody, are you sold on ARM?
I am sold on ARM as right now, because I'm stuck in that chicken and egg issue. I'm sold on it as a secondary device, one of my devices, my travel device that I use while doing other things around the world or wherever. I am strongly considering an ARM device for that. However, until we get again, a lot of my focus is gaming. If there's a version of DaVinci Resolve that will run on ARM, which is something that I will look at. Oh, he's shaking his head. Anyway, but if there's something like that I can use, well, I love DaVinci Resolve now, but if I can use that on ARM, then it might, plus games, then it's a strong contender for me completely switching to ARM. But until that happens, it has to be a secondary device for me.
So hopefully in the next 6 months, ARMs grow some bigger, broader shoulders, and it'll be able to handle that. Thank you.
It's going to take longer than that. I mean, I do not see ARM chips realistically replacing desktop level CPUs for a while in a desktop use. Now, throwing a dock on a laptop because you just need that additional real estate, like at a office setting, I do see that probably in the next 5 years becoming a thing, because I know at my work.
Thin clients are a thing, too.
Oh yeah. Well, we hate thin clients, but I've been the tech evangelist trying to go, oh, you have a laptop and a desktop. Well, why don't you get, you're saying you need a new desktop, but this laptop is brand new. And what do you do? Oh, you do Office and Outlook and a couple of other programs like that. You're not doing video editing. You're not doing, graphic design. Why don't we get you a dock, a US or a Thunderbolt 3 dock? That all you do is when you go to a meeting, you unplug the dock, you take your laptop with you. All of your documents are right there. When you get back to the desk and you want to use 2 monitors and a keyboard and mouse and your webcam and your microphone and all that stuff, great. Plug your one cable in and you're good to go. And I have probably 15 people have made that leap. And it's cheaper for us as a company because then we're not having to buy a desktop.
Less
it's cheaper on us IT support because that's less equipment that's out there that is going to have vulnerabilities and need patches and need attention. And then you've got just the one device that when they say, oh, my laptop, or this printer isn't working for me anymore. Okay, well, let's reinstall it on your laptop and you're good to go. Not a problem.
We have a lot of people switching to Surface Pros. At our office. So, yeah, it's interesting to see how it will progress. Some people take to it really well. Some people, I would say a greater percentage of people take to it and love it than don't.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, it was something I was doing back with the Surface Pro 3 when I worked at Internet Colorado. That was I didn't touch
You got S.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I have a Surface
I still have
Pro
mine.
3.
I love it.
Yeah.
Ironically, you're the only one without one now.
My biggest problem, and this is another rant, and I'll keep it short. My biggest problem with the Surface laptop tablet thing is it doesn't have a hinge on the keyboard.
Tray table. Oh my God.
No.
Yeah. So there is a fix
just
for
use
that
the on-screen
kind of
keyboard.
No, because you have to prop it. So, yeah, there's a few problems. Like, if you are putting that on a tray table, you have to prop it. What do you prop it on? There's nothing behind that extended tray table to prop the little stand on. Now, there's a fix for that called a bridge, which is a separate company, but they stopped making them for the Surface Pro 3 because it's, 5 years old now. 5 years old now. And also, my beef with the Surface is always the keyboard. That Surface type keyboard is complete trash. I don't know if they're slightly better now, but they're overpriced.
I have never had an issue with that keyboard. I love that keyboard.
I hate it. Mine came apart in multiple ways. It cost me $120 for the stupid keyboard, and so it cost me as much as my Corsair fancy, aluminum keyboard.
Mechanical.
Yeah, mechanical keys, and it does less than half of what my Corsair does. So yeah. Anyway,
Also doesn't
I'm
line up.
stopping the rant. We're going pretty long right now, so we should
Yep.
kind of wrap things up.
All right. Well, yeah, hopefully you guys learned about Ceres, the Roman goddess of agricultural, also a dwarf planet, which was highly interesting. That apparently is only really as cold as Fairbanks in Alaska.
Gotcha.
And yeah, hopefully, if I didn't fully convert you, which was not the goal, it was just to let you know about an upcoming technology. Hopefully, you learned and laughed and maybe loved just a little bit.
Hey, that's our description.
Cried at my puns, you know.
No, nothing's perfect.
Well, I am Brandon Vader, again, the ARM evangelist. But you can find me on the techpart.net. I just recently uploaded a quick unboxing and hot take for a dumb phone as a punishment phone for my child that I found interesting. I'm terribly sorry about the long bit of me trying to type in websites to test that. I should have edited that out, but it's out there and up there. Just
It's a
skip
good
through
review.
it. Enjoy the rest
No,
of it.
it's good.
And you can also find that same video on YouTube. I am the Tech Pirate on YouTube. And you can also find me on Twitter at ttp_net. So Tango Papa _ Nabisco Echo Tango.
November.
Charlie, just
Love
die.
the facepalm, Charlie.
Love
It's
the facepalm.
revenge for all the puns.
I had to use my whole arm for that. Gotcha.
Arm palm. Face arm. Face
you
off.
You know what I'm really looking forward to next episode? The end of these goddamn puns.
Unless we bring Charlie back.
When
Charlie,
bring
where can
Charlie
we
back.
find you?
You can find me streaming on Twitch now at Milnor. Just search Milnor on Twitch and you'll find me.
How's it
Overwatch,
spelled?
Oblivion, Skyrim, you know, that kind of stuff.
We probably need a spelling for Mjolnir.
Oh,
We'll put it in.
Mijolnoir, spelled intentionally wrong, so I always get it.
Awesome.
Love the strategy.
Mm.
Cody, where can we find you?
Here. Yep, I'm Cody Stratman or Psychonitrous on various games, Steam, whatever. Unless it's Blizzard, then it's Zito Valdair for some reason. Yeah, and also
World of Warcraft.
No.
That's why that. Yeah. No.
Anything
That's
No,
why
actually,
that-
actually, it's
right?
Guild
That is.
Wars. Is Guild Wars, where that name
That's
first
not
came
Blizzard.
from. Well,
But that's where the name came from
I know,
initially.
but I'm
Okay,
saying that the
okay.
Blizzard client. Anyway, we're getting off track.
Okay.
I also have a channel called Striving to Fail, and yeah, occasionally I upload videos. That's kind of a lie. It's more rarely I upload videos, but it's going to change too occasionally one of these days. So
Eventually, when we
travel
can,
again.
yeah, but we can say
Well,
hello
no,
to the outside
I
world.
still have stuff that I need. I still have a whole trip, so that's a whole series of videos that I can put up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Colton, where can we find you?
Well, I'm Colton Roper. I go by Seeker4761 in
Again,
various platforms.
shoes. How many shoes he has?
I'm gonna find that other shoe one day. Twitch, twitch.tv/Seeker4761. I'm a contributor to the techpirate.net. You can also find me on YouTube under the same name. I also have a Twitter as well, Seeker4761, because I am all about consistency. So check me out. It's interesting sometimes.
Most of the time.
All right.
Yeah, at times.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thanks for being here, Charlie. And thank you for joining us on this episode of This Week I'm Learning. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube at This Week I'm Learning. You can follow us on Twitter at TWIL Pod on Facebook and on Facebook as well. If you'd like to contact us, you can always send us an email at twil@thetechpirate.net. We'll see you next week.
Bye.